After my parents got divorced, I had to live with my mom, her new boyfriend, and his daughter, who hates me. My relationship with my boyfriend fell apart when I found out he was cheating on me with her. That was just the beginning of how my life turned into a nightmare. So, my name is Emily. I'm 16 years old and barely holding it together. It feels like everything around me is falling apart, and I just can't change a thing. My parents, my mom and dad, got divorced when I was 13, and since then, my life has been total chaos. I live with my mom, her new boyfriend, my stepdad, who I barely know, and his daughter, Sarah. Sarah is my stepsister, and from the very start, we've been at war, even though I don't fully get why. She looks at me like I'm some stranger, not her sister. Mom and stepdad always side with her, and most of the time, I feel like I don't belong in my own house. My dad lives separately. We don't see each other much, and he barely knows what's going on at home. I don't blame him. He has his own life, but I really miss having a real family. School isn't great either. I've lost most of my friends, and I'm quiet and shut down. Constant anxiety, and feeling like nobody needs me drag me down every day. And then there was Jake, my boyfriend. We were together for almost 2 years. He was the only one who seemed like my real support, but everything changed. For a long time, I didn't want to see that he was pulling away. He texted less, disappeared more after school, and I started to feel something was wrong. But I couldn't let myself think the worst. I was so scared of losing the only person I had left. Until one evening I saw his phone. There was a message from Sarah. The text was cold and clear. They were seeing each other behind my back. I couldn't believe it. Betrayed by my stepsister, the one I was afraid of and hated, and by the guy I trusted. It hit me like a bomb, breaking me into pieces. I broke up with Jake that same day. But that was just the start of my problems. After that, things at home got worse. Sarah became even more rude, and instead of supporting me, Mom and stepdad seemed to take her side. It was like they forgot I was a real person living there, not just a shadow. I felt like I didn't exist anywhere, not at home, not at school, not even in Jake's heart. After that night, everything inside me exploded, but I tried not to show anyone my pain. The room was silent, and I just stared at the ceiling, trying to quiet the endless thoughts. Why is everything like this? Why me? Mom got colder. She stopped paying attention to me like before, and her words often hurt. Stepdad, the man we live with now, looked at me like I was a burden. Every time I passed by, he ignored me, and that feeling of being unwanted was the worst. Sarah enjoyed every mistake I made. She did everything to annoy me, ruined my things on purpose, whispered stuff to Mom and stepdad, and instead of protecting me, they believed her. I felt like a stranger in my own home. School was the only place I could escape a little, but even there I was alone. Friends drifted away, and I closed myself off, quiet and distant. The loneliness felt endless. Jake didn't even try to contact me. His silence was the worst punishment. I realized I was just convenient to him, not someone who deserved honesty. In the evenings, I often walked alone, trying to numb the pain with the cold and city noise. But it didn't help. The emptiness inside kept growing. Mom and stepdad controlled more and more of my life, where I went, who I talked to, what I did. They said it was for my own good, but I knew it was fear of losing control. Sarah just poured fuel on the fire, enjoying my suffering. In the dark of my room, I started writing a diary, the only place I could be honest. I poured my anger, fear, and pain there. Those pages became my escape in a world where I felt lonely and unwanted. I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. I had to find a way out, even if I didn't know where to start. The truth is, Sarah wasn't just a stepdad's kid. She was a real problem. Not just mean or stubborn, she had this anger inside, like she carried enough hate for everyone. She always found a way to make my life miserable, even when I thought it couldn't get worse. She knew how to hurt me in ways no one else could see, like a silent punch to the heart. Sarah could smile at Mom and stepdad, but throw daggers at me with her words and actions that crushed my confidence. Her favorite game was to embarrass me in front of Mom and stepdad, set me up, and cause fights. The worst part was that Mom and stepdad often believed her, even though I never tried to do anything wrong. It got worse when Sarah started following me outside the house. She called me from hidden numbers, sent me messages, and stalked me at school. This wasn't just hate, it was a full war. I felt like I had no chance for peace anywhere, not in this house, not in my life. Every day was a new fight just to survive. And through it all, Jake, my ex who cheated on me with Sarah. When I found out, it felt like the world was falling apart. I couldn't understand how they could do that to me, especially Sarah. After I broke up with Jake, Sarah got even bolder. It was like she wanted to show she won. She lived behind my back and enjoyed every failure of mine. My relationship with Mom had long turned into a silent war. She rarely talked to me for real, spending more time with Sarah or stepdad. Every look or word from her silently said I was a problem she wanted to hide. Often, she just ignored me, like I was a shadow blocking her new life. Stepdad didn't hide his irritation. He acted like I was a stranger in his home, and that feeling got stronger every day. His harsh looks and short answers made me feel uncomfortable even in my own room. Sarah never left me alone on purpose. She pointed out every mistake, mocked my efforts to fit in this new family, and told Mom everything I did wrong. She was a master manipulator, and I was powerless to watch Mom and Stepdad take her side. Sometimes it felt like they all teamed up against me. Every time I tried to share my feelings, they said I was too dramatic or trying to start fights. At school, I tried not to show how bad things were at home, but it was hard. During lessons, my mind always went back to home, and I felt torn between two worlds, one where I wasn't wanted, and one where I had to be strong even though everything inside was falling apart. I didn't want anyone to see me weak, so I tried to keep a cold mask, but it was cracking. One evening, while sitting alone in my room feeling like the whole world was against me, I overheard a conversation between Mom and Stepdad in the kitchen. They were speaking quietly, but I understood everything. Mom was blaming me for all the family problems. She said I never tried to fix things and only made everything worse. Stepdad, who rarely spoke, added that I was just too stubborn and didn't want to change. Their words cut like a knife, but what hurt most was that they didn't understand me and didn't want to listen. I felt like I was trapped in a cage with no way out. At that time, I started to distance myself even more from everyone. I closed up inside to avoid their blame and constant fights. I spent more time alone in my room or outside, where I could at least forget for a little while. Sarah, of course, didn't miss a chance to laugh at my attempts to be happy. She made her provocations even harsher. She didn't leave me alone at home or at school, making every day a battle. I began to notice that I was building an inner wall, a defense mechanism to protect me from the pain. I stopped trusting anyone, even myself. Every day, I sank deeper into my own world, which became my only refuge from reality. A world without judgment, shouting, or betrayal. But even there in my thoughts, I couldn't get rid of the feeling of brokenness. Mom barely spoke to me, and when she did, her words were short and cold. I remember once she told me I should calm down and start acting like an adult. Those words cut deep. I was 16, but I felt like a child who couldn't even count on her mother's support. My stepdad acted like I was a stranger, and that made everything harder. His looks were sharp, and his tone was commanding. I realized that in this house, I would never be accepted, and all he wanted was for me to disappear from his life. And Sarah, she made my life a living hell. Her fits, cynical smiles, and constant teasing drove me crazy. It was like she hunted for my weaknesses and never gave me a chance. At school, she seemed charming and popular, but I knew who she really was. Recently, she told others that I was mentally ill and can't handle life. I heard these words through whispers and looks from classmates. I tried to ignore it, but each comment hurt a little more. No support at home, Sarah's constant insults, and the pain of my ex-boyfriend cheating on me with her made me feel completely alone. I stopped asking adults for help. They didn't want to see what was really happening. One day, I finally dared to talk to my mom about what was going on. I tried to explain how much Sarah hurt me, how abandoned and betrayed I felt. But instead of support, I got cold words. All kids go through this, and you just need to be stronger. After that talk, I understood I couldn't count on my mom anymore. She chose my stepdad and Sarah's side, and I was left alone. Then I started looking for answers online, on social media, hoping to find someone who could understand me. But even there, I felt like an outsider. One day, scrolling through my feed, I found a story from a girl who went through something similar. Her words were simple but powerful. You are not alone. You deserve better. It was like a breath of fresh air in a suffocating room. I realized I had to find a way out of this hell, even if it would be the hardest path of my life. From that day, I spent more time outside the house, trying to avoid fights and tension. I went for walks in the park, visited the library, anywhere I could escape the home reality. Sometimes it felt like outside, I became a different person, less lost, more collected. But those moments were short. Coming back home, I was trapped again, where every step felt watched. Sarah never left me alone. She knew when I was home alone and sent me messages full of insults and threats. Sometimes she called at night just to wake me up and make me feel terrible. Mom knew about it, but did nothing to protect me. She didn't want to get involved, afraid it would make things worse with my stepdad and Sarah. One evening, coming back from a walk, I met a neighbor who noticed my sad face. He said he saw me walking alone a lot and told me that if I ever needed help or just someone to talk to, I could come to him. This simple offer felt strange, but I didn't know what to do with it. I usually didn't trust people, but I felt I couldn't live like this anymore. School was no better. Teachers noticed I became withdrawn and tired, but no one stepped in. Classmates looked at me for different reasons, some with curiosity, others with judgment. Sarah kept building her reputation and tried to involve others. A few girls from school supported her, and together they created an atmosphere where it was hard for me to breathe. I started keeping a diary to cope with everything. I wrote down all the pain, anger, and fear. It was my way not to break. Writing in my diary became my little rescue. Every day I opened the notebook and poured out everything inside. The anger at my mom, who couldn't understand me, the pain from Sarah and her friends tormenting me, and the biggest wound, my ex's betrayal. He was one of the few I trusted, but that trust turned against me. It turned out he cheated on me with Sarah, the same girl who bullied me every day. That news broke me into pieces. How could someone live like that and feel no shame? After I found out the truth, I broke up with him immediately. No explanations, no chances to fix things. I didn't want to see his face or hear his voice. The feeling of betrayal emptied me, and it took a long time to find the strength to live on. School got worse. Sarah mocked me again, and her friends laughed behind my back and whispered during lessons. I tried to ignore it, but the poison got into my soul day by day. One break, I lost it. I ran out of class and went to the bathroom, where I just cried. It was quiet there, and I could allow myself to be weak. At that moment, I thought no one needed me and that I'd never get out of this swamp. But even in the darkest moments, I held on to the thought that someday this would end. I was scared, but inside a little flame of hope was burning. Tension at home didn't go away. Mom focused more on my stepdad and Sarah, like they were the only important people in her life. I could only be silent and endure. Sometimes I caught Mom's look when she thought I wasn't watching. There was something unclear in it, maybe pity, maybe indifference, or just tiredness from all the problems. My stepdad stayed distant, as usual. He rarely talked to me, making our relationship colder. I tried to talk to him, but got short, formal answers. In his eyes, I saw only indifference. For the sake of a normal life, I started thinking about the future, how to get out of this house and build my life without these toxic people. Dreaming was painful, but it was the only thing keeping me afloat. Even though despair and hope fought inside me, I knew I wouldn't give up without a fight. The days dragged on like gray lines on a calendar, each one like the last. But something inside me changed. A stubbornness woke up, a desire to fight for myself and my life. I couldn't stand the coldness of my mom, stepdad, and especially Sarah's sarcastic smiles. Her presence poisoned everything around, like a dark shadow following my every step. One evening, I sat in my room, staring into a dark corner where light hadn't been for a long time. I felt broken, but also determined. It was clear I needed to change something. The next day, I decided I would start looking for a job after school, any job, just to have some freedom and earn money for my needs. This was my small but important first victory. It was hard at first. I sent applications to different shops and cafes, trying to get a job as a waitress or cashier. Everyone refused, saying I was too young or had no experience, but I didn't give up. School didn't get better. Sarah and her group kept laughing and teasing me. But now I wasn't afraid anymore. She tried to make me angry, but I answered with coldness and indifference. She didn't understand that this new me was not like before. One day, I met my literature teacher, Mrs. Jenkins, by chance. She noticed I was often alone and upset, and offered to help. She wasn't just a teacher, she became my first real supporter. We started meeting after classes, and she helped me prepare for exams, and sometimes just listened. For the first time in a long time, I felt someone really cared. That gave me strength. I started dreaming about college, about a future without betrayal and pain. But at home, the tension stayed. Mom ignored my attempts to improve our relationship. Stepdad acted like a stranger, and Sarah seemed to feel I was changing and looked for new ways to hurt me. One day, she spread fake rumors at school, saying I behaved badly and didn't trust anyone. This caused gossip, and even some of my acquaintances began to treat me with suspicion. It was a blow to my new image, but now I knew, to survive, I had to be stronger than anyone around. After everything I went through, I started looking at myself and my life differently. I stopped blaming others and focused on what I could control, myself and my actions. The next weeks were full of work on myself and searching for chances. I got a job at a small cafe near school. The work was hard, standing for long hours, smiling at customers who were not always nice. But it gave me a feeling of freedom and independence. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could control my own life. At home, the atmosphere stayed tense. Seeing I was busy, Sarah looked for new ways to sabotage me. She didn't stop at words. Once I found my backpack thrown on the floor and my things scattered all over my room. It was like a small act of revenge, but also showed her real attitude. Mom saw I was tired and upset, but never defended me. She often said it was better not to make things worse, that I just had to endure. That broke me. I felt lonely in my own home, where it should have been the warmest and safest place. My stepdad talked less and less. His coldness was like a silent wall between us. I tried to talk to him, but got only short, formal replies. In his eyes, I saw only indifference. At the cafe, I met some people who became a kind of support for me. One of them was Jack, a middle-aged man who often came to the cafe. He was simple and open, often encouraging me with kind words. His kindness helped me forget about home problems, at least for a few hours. At school, things were still hard. Sarah and her group didn't stop attacking me, but now I didn't react, trying not to give them power over me. It didn't always work, but I kept working on myself, believing that one day I would get out of this circle. One evening after work, coming home, I had a strange feeling. I knew tomorrow would be another hard day, but at the same time, I felt a strength growing inside me, a strength I hadn't noticed before. A strength that would help me survive everything ahead. I went back to my diary and wrote about my thoughts, fears, and dreams. I wanted that text to be proof that I hadn't broken, that even in the darkest times, you can find light. Since I started working, some stability appeared in my life. Even though home stayed tense and hostile, I began to feel like I had control over at least one part of my life. The cafe job became not just a source of income. Every morning, I woke up earlier to prepare for the workday. It was my ritual: coffee, getting dressed, a brief chat with colleagues. Sometimes I thought about my mom, about how she lived in her own world, where I seemed not to exist. Her indifference hurt, but I try not to show how much it pained me. Sarah continued her attacks. She didn't just humiliate me at home and at school, but also started posting nasty things about me on social media. The comments were cruel, and every time I felt like I was breaking all over again. But now I had protection: friends from work, my literature teacher, and even some classmates started treating me differently. I no longer stayed silent. If before I hated arguments, now I learned to stand up for myself. Even when it was hard, I started speaking out loud about what hurt me. It was my way to fight, even if not always effective. At home, the atmosphere remained tense. Mom barely paid attention to my feelings, my stepdad was indifferent, and Sarah grew even more aggressive. One day, I even overheard them laughing behind my back, coming up with new ways to shame me. It broke my heart, but at the same time, I realized I couldn't let them control my life anymore. And though I felt lonely, I knew it was temporary. Exams were ahead, the chance to enter college, and there, the opportunity to start fresh. This thought kept me going even in the toughest moments. One evening, I opened my diary again and began to write. This time, not about pain or disappointment, but about what I wanted from life. I dreamed of freedom, of being heard, of finding people who would truly support me. I understood the path would be long and hard, but I was ready to walk it. The first step was already taken. I was no longer afraid to fight for myself. Life remained difficult, but inside me a feeling slowly grew that I wasn't alone. Since I started working and found support from my literature teacher, new acquaintances appeared as well. Among them was Lisa, a girl from my class who, surprisingly, was very kind and sensitive. She was unlike the others, those who mocked and bullied. Lisa understood me without many words, and it was strange yet pleasant. We began to communicate outside school, met in the park, sometimes just sat in a cafe after my work. Her support became more and more important to me. She helped me survive moments when it seemed the world was collapsing and the future was dark and hopeless. At home, the situation remained unchanged. Mom reduced everything to trivial things, criticizing me for every mistake as if forgetting that I was a person too, with my feelings and problems. My stepdad continued to stay aside, unwilling to interfere in our family quarrels. Sarah, meanwhile, became even more malicious. Her constant pranks and insults began to affect even my studies. But it was during this time I decided not to give up. My dream of a better future grew even brighter. I began dedicating more time to studying, understanding that knowledge was my weapon. I imagined how one day I would leave this house, this toxic world, and start life anew. One day, coming home after work, I noticed Mom was unusually quiet. She was staring out the window, as if something was bothering her. For the first time in a long time, I tried to talk to her, to ask what was wrong. She only sighed deeply and said, "Maybe I made mistakes, but I'm trying." Those words were unexpected. They made me think. Maybe she was suffering too, just didn't know how to express her feelings. That didn't excuse her coldness, but added new understanding. Meanwhile, Sarah didn't stop her antics. She spread new rumors, trying to isolate me from classmates. But now I felt I had the strength to fight. Lisa's support, new goals, and work helped me stay afloat. I began planning my future more clearly. College, work, independence, all of it became more real. And though the fear of the unknown remained, I was ready to look forward and not look back. One evening, coming home after a long workday, I noticed Sarah sitting on the couch with her phone, looking like she was plotting something. Her eyes gleamed with malice, and I felt that something unpleasant was about to begin. She started talking about my ex-boyfriend, Jake. Earlier, I thought our problems were just misunderstandings, but now I learned the real truth. Sarah told me that Jake hadn't just betrayed me. He secretly met with her behind my back and deliberately told her personal things about me, trying to sow doubt and pain. I stood there, unable to believe my ears. That blow was much more painful than I expected. Jake, whom I trusted the most, turned out to be a traitor, and Sarah was the enemy who had been poisoning my life for years. I went to my room, closed the door, and tried to gather my thoughts. It hurt, but I knew this was the moment to stop enduring and start fighting. Since I found out about Jake's betrayal and Sarah's role in it, my world turned upside down. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, either remain a victim of circumstances or take everything into my own hands and finally start living for myself. And I chose the latter. The next days were like a whirlwind. Emotions overflowed me to the brim. I couldn't sleep at night. My thoughts jumped from anger to sadness, from despair to unwavering determination. I understood Jake wasn't even worth a single tear, and Sarah was just a person desperately trying to seize what belonged to me. During all this time, I kept in touch with Lisa. She became more than just a friend. Her understanding and support gave me strength not to fall into despair. We spent evenings together when I just vented, and she listened without judgment. One day, Lisa suggested something that changed everything. She said, "You're not going to let them control your life, right? It's time to show who the real boss is." At first, I hesitated. The thought of open conflict with Mom, my stepdad, Sarah, and even Jake scared me. But later, I realized, without this, I would never be free. I began planning how to gradually take back control over my life. First of all, it was education. I decided that the best answer to everyone who humiliated me was my success and independence. I started preparing intensively for exams, giving it my all. Every victory at school became a small win over pain and disappointment. Working at the cafe gave me not only money, but a sense of dignity. There, I first felt valued, that I could be needed and useful. It was my little island in the storm. As for home, I began building my distance. Not losing my nerves over every unreasonable reproach from Mom, ignoring sarcastic comments from my stepdad, and avoiding arguments with Sarah. It wasn't easy, especially when she kept looking for reasons to fight. But over time, I learned to pay no attention. One day, something happened that showed me how much I had changed. Sarah, as usual, decided to punish me, this time in front of school friends. She started publicly insulting and mocking me, trying to disgrace me. Instead of crying or running away, I gathered my strength, looked her straight in the eyes, and said her words didn't affect me. This surprised not only Sarah, but everyone around. That moment was a turning point. I felt that I was finally reclaiming my life. I was no longer a defenseless girl who let herself be humiliated. I was stronger than ever. Another important step was talking with Mom. I had been putting it off, afraid of conflict, but one evening I realized I couldn't keep silent any longer. I openly told her about my pain, how her indifference and coldness hurt me. Her reaction was unexpected. She cried, admitted she also suffered and made mistakes, and feared losing me. This conversation didn't make our life perfect, but it opened the door to dialogue. I felt I could try to build new relationships with Mom, where there would be room for both of us. As for Jake, I decided not to think about him anymore. His image as a traitor became my motivation, not a burden. I knew many challenges lay ahead, but now I was ready to face them without fear. Sarah remained the same toxic element, but now she couldn't break me. I learned to protect myself and fight for my right to be happy. And so, sitting at my desk at night, I felt for the first time in a long while that I could breathe freely. My life was complicated, but it was mine. After everything that happened, I finally felt I found myself. Life didn't become perfect. Conflicts with Mom still flared up from time to time, and Sarah never stopped trying to hurt me. But now I was different, stronger, more aware, and capable of defending my boundaries. I graduated school with honors and received a scholarship to university. It was my small but important achievement, proof that I was capable of more than anyone expected. My contact with Jake was completely cut off. He remained in the past as a bitter lesson that taught me to value myself and not settle for less than I deserved. Mom, although she didn't change dramatically, became a little more open. We started talking not only about everyday things but also about what worried each of us. These conversations were not easy, but sincere. My stepdad stayed distant, and Sarah remained part of my childhood pain that I was now able to let go. This story is about how I, a simple girl who once lost herself in a chaos of betrayal and misunderstanding, was able to find my voice again and become the master of my life. And I know many hardships lie ahead, but now I am ready for them. Because now I am Sarah, and this is my story.